Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, everybody. May Allah grant us all contentment and grant us all peace. May He let us know the truth. May He let us understand reality. Before we can go on this path, before we can make progress, we have to have faith. We have to believe in God. We have to have faith that God exists. Faith is like the boat that you use to cross the ocean of illusion. But wisdom is the motor on that boat. You know, there are lots of people who proclaim faith in God. Some of them walk around with machine guns to make sure everybody else has faith in God too, and to make sure everybody else believes the way they do. Sufism is a course in reality, a course in truth, a course in knowledge, a course in wisdom. Wisdom is understanding reality. Faith can go in many directions and take you many ways. And faith is very important to you. But without real knowledge, without the wisdom to understand where faith should lead you, you can easily be led astray. And this is where fanaticism goes. Fanatics believe very, very strongly that God exists, but they also believe very, very strongly in the fact that differences exist and that religions are different and that each religion seems to have a different purpose in its being. Faith alone will not bring the results that are necessary for you to understand the truth. Somehow, wisdom has to dawn within you. And for wisdom to be able to come into your being, we have to be able to let go of our imaginations. We have to be able to let go of all of the things that we have been taught that aren't true in this world. When I was young, I noticed that if I asked older people a question, they would give me an answer. Whether they knew or not, they would give me an answer. And at the time, I was too young to know whether that answer had any validity to it. As I grew older and began to learn something about the truth, I learned that not every answer that you're given is valid. Not everybody that you talk to knows the truth. Not everybody that you talk to is careful in what they tell you and is careful enough that when they don't know, to say, I don't know. In this world, I have found that I don't know is a legitimate answer. In some situations, if you can't say, I don't know, you can cause people tremendous problems. If doctors don't know what your disease is, but apply remedies anyway, who knows where that's going to take you? If you go to a lawyer with a question and the lawyer doesn't know the procedure or how to resolve your situation, he can get you into a lot of trouble. And on and on and on. A car mechanic, if you bring him a car and he doesn't know how to fix it, but goes ahead and takes the car apart anyway, you're going to end up with a car that not only doesn't run, but can't be put back together because of the fact that he took it apart. We need to know the limits of what we know. We need to be able to comprehend that God is beyond our comprehension. Our arrogance has to be able to let go of needing to know the answer to everything. We have to become content in the state that we are in, with the understanding that more knowledge and more wisdom will come to us when we are ready to receive more knowledge and more wisdom. What's the point of giving knowledge to someone who can't act on it? What's the point of giving knowledge to someone who can't comprehend it? What's the use of giving knowledge to someone who doesn't know what to do with it? God is a power that is far beyond our comprehension. To be able to satisfy yourself that you are a created being whose creator is far beyond our comprehension is something that we have to get hold of and something that we have to be able to deal with. Now, knowing this, we also know that God has told us that he is merciful and he is compassionate. So even though we don't know the extent of God's power and the majesty of God's power and how God's power acts, we do know that God is merciful, and we can rely on that mercy as that which is going to save us, that which is going to take us beyond where we are now into places that are beyond our comprehension. Now, to be able to be taken to places beyond our comprehension, we have to stop imagining where we're going to go. If we are going to go beyond our imagination, we have to let go of our imagination. For Allah to show us places that we haven't yet been, that are beyond what we can comprehend, we have to stop insisting internally that we already know. The intellect, when he asks a question, is not asking a question to get an answer. He's asking a question to begin a dispute. We can't be that way. We have to ask questions and be open to answers. We have to somehow make ourselves empty. If we don't become empty, there's no room for the truth to come within us. Since we already know that we don't know everything, what is our responsibility? What is it that we have to learn at the threshold of understanding? And we have to learn that our duty is to give up all responsibility to God. Since we don't know, we have to give up responsibility as to what's going to happen to the one who does know. And this is a very difficult thing for people to do. Much more difficult for people with high IQs than for people who have less ability to conquer the world, at least in their minds. The smarter we think we are, the more we think we can figure out. And no matter how smart anyone is, they're going to run into a situation that they don't know the answer to. And depending upon their own makeup, a lot of different things will happen to this person who reaches that wall where he doesn't know the answer. He can become frustrated. He can become angry. He can become subject to a breakdown. He can begin to lose confidence in himself, confidence in reality, confidence in knowing anything, and he can lose his faith because his faith is dependent on his own knowledge. Can we shift our faith towards the knowledge that God is the one who knows everything, God is the one who does everything, that God is the supreme actor, and we are acting out his role, and we have surrendered to that which he wants us to do. This understanding of surrender to God is critical to each and every one of us as far as our progress is concerned. Wisdom is reality. Intellect is an attachment to this illusory world and an attempt by each of us to manipulate this illusory world in accordance with our own desire. So we desire things within the world, we begin to manipulate the world in order to satisfy those desires. This circular action of desire and attempts to satisfy desire become life for most people, become the beginning and the end. Life becomes an attempt to satisfy desire. Desire can't be satisfied. Whatever it is that you get that brings desire to some sort of conclusion, another desire will spring up. Another desire will spring up. Desire never stops. What we need to do in order to find contentment is to end our association with desire, to end our constant interplay with desire. And if we can do that, we can begin to travel on this path of the truth. But that which pulls us away from the path in every instance is desire. There are people who have what they call attention deficit. They can't concentrate on one thing. Everything pulls them away from what they're trying to do. Everything they see grabs them and pulls them towards that. And then they play with that for a while, and then they get pulled towards something else. This is how desire works. We all have this attention deficit, which is subject to our desires. We're constantly pulled by all of the magnetisms in this elemental world. Remember, we are made up of elements, and the world is made up of elements. And these elements attract each other. And if our life is made up of these attractions and reacting to these attractions, then we will have a life that is spent on an elemental level, relating to, interacting with, and being attracted to and desiring elements and our sensory interplay with these elements. We need to discover how to be less attached to our elemental interactions. We need to learn how to be less attached to our sensory interactions. Sufis used to go on 40-day sensory deprivation retreats, which consisted of going into a cave, usually somewhere near the Dargah underground, and they would stay there for 40 days. And the function of staying there in 40 days is to see what would happen to you if you are deprived of sensory interaction for an extended period of time. Well, some of the things that you would find is that there's a part of you that still exists without sensory interaction. There's a part of you that still is without sensory interaction. And then you begin to realize that you have layers which are further away or closer to that which is really you. And that which is really you is centered in a stillness, is centered in a silence, is centered in an area where there is no elemental interaction, where there is no elemental interplay, interface, where there is no give and response to the elements because they don't exist. We came from a light world. That light world didn't have and doesn't have this whole elemental interplay that is the illusion of existence. If we are able to return to that light world, we have to release ourselves from this elemental interplay, or else we become stuck in it. And if we become stuck in it, then we become subject to rebirth within this elemental world over and over and over again until we can release ourselves from this elemental world. Now, for those of us who have been taught that everything that we need is within the world and that our status depends on how much of the world we've collected, we have set ourselves up with that kind of thinking for constant rebirth. If we want to end rebirth, we have to end attachment to the elemental world. If we are to end attachment to the elemental world, we have to have faith in that which is not elemental. And what is it that's not elemental? God is not elemental. He is without form and without elemental substance. And he had sent into the world beings that are like him, that are without elemental substance, but he's formed substance around them so that they look to us as if they are like us. But if we have the good fortune to find one of these beings, after being with them for a while, we realize that even though they look like us, they don't have the magnetic attraction to this illusory world that we carry. They don't have the need to interact with this illusory world that we carry. They don't find satisfaction or seeming satisfaction from this illusory world that we find satisfaction. They have a different idea of what's real than we do. And why are they here? They are here to show us reality. So they are here to teach us the knowledge that we need in order to understand reality, and they teach us the methodology that we have to go through in order to find reality. And so what they do is they try to wean us slowly away from our need for all of the things that we see, touch, hear, smell in this world. They are here to teach us that in our essence, this is not what's important to us. Just as the sensory deprivation shows us that we can live without these things, carry on without these things, and maybe have insights that take us way beyond where any of these things can take us. There are the petty pleasures, and then there is the godlike ecstasy that can exist for you. For many people, these petty pleasures of the world become what they strive for and what they spend their life trying to achieve. Earth, women, men, gold, fame, great wealth, power. This satisfies some people for a certain amount of time. Then they find that whatever satisfaction they had dissipates, and they need something else. It's like drugs. People who have done drugs are always trying to recreate their first experience with a drug, but you can never recreate your first experience with a drug. That seeming ecstasy that they had at first never comes back again. And then all of a sudden, it becomes a constant need just to stop the body craving. We need to go beyond our cravings. We need to learn to release our cravings. It's only when we get to the point that we can release our cravings that we can come to know who we are. Every craving we have is a veil between us and reality. Every craving we have is a veil between us and God. Every craving we have is an attachment to illusion that binds us to the elemental world and doesn't let us escape into the light. This is what craving does to us. And the whole world is in a conspiracy with Satan to make these cravings great within all of us. Walk down any city street or drive down any highway, and what is staring you in the face all the time? Advertisements for things people want you to crave, that people want you to want. Why? Because it satisfies their needs. What are their needs? To make more money. So we, each of us, has to begin to be able to see through the lies of this world that want us to crave. Bawa used to tell a story of the billboards of hell. And essentially the story was that if you fall for the advertisement, eventually where that advertisement takes you is quite the opposite of where you think it's going to take you. It takes you to your own demise. It takes you to hell, as opposed to taking you to some kind of soaring satisfaction. We have to understand where satisfaction truly exists. And to do that, we have to understand the source of satisfaction, the source of truth. And the source of all satisfaction and the source of all truth is our Lord. And the only way that we can find our Lord is first to enter into a state where we are content with our situation, where we are satisfied where we are, and our craving no longer overwhelms us to the point that we are reactionary to that craving, and we spend all our time trying to satisfy that craving. We need to turn that off in us. We need to find a way to go through this world without craving. One of the ways to do this is to begin to understand what God has done for us. If we can be in a state of gratitude, that gratitude will decrease our craving. Gratitude decreases craving. Gratitude decreases sorrow. Gratitude decreases difficulty. Gratitude decreases need. Gratitude decreases desire. Gratitude brings us into a state of equanimity where we are content with our situation. Gratitude does away with jealousy. Gratitude does away with anger. Gratitude does away with our craving and using satanic qualities in order to try to achieve that craving. Craving becomes so big in some people that they lose all sense of morality, all sense of truth, all sense of appropriate behavior. That's why murders happen. That's why rapes happen. That's why thievery happens. That's why all excessive actions happen because of craving in an excessive way. When craving enters into fanaticism, all kinds of terrible things happen. And this fanaticism can happen in many, many, many different ways. Fanaticism happens through nationalities. Fanaticism happens through race. Fanaticism happens through religion. Fanaticism happens through so many different belief systems. But we have to understand that in order to become real, in order to understand reality, we have to give up all fanaticism, because all fanaticism is attached to illusion. All fanaticism is attached to an imagination of how things should be, as opposed to the reality of how things are. The fanaticism that everybody has to be forced into one religion is a blatant lie that is accepted by so many people, and because it's a lie, has to be forced on people. So people who are fanatic, who want to make other people believe what they believe, walk around with machine guns on their shoulders, and if you don't believe what they believe, the quick answer is to shoot you. There's no freedom in fanaticism. There's no ability to find your own way in fanaticism, and there's no change in anybody who is coerced through fanaticism. People change because of love and because their hearts have opened up in recognition of kindness and love, who've opened up in recognition of mercy and compassion, who've opened up because they understand the true nature of reality. And within that true nature of reality, they understand the soothing nature of the balm, that BALM, that is our God. The balm that is that which coats us with his qualities. We have to understand that if we can go beyond our desire, if we can go beyond our fanatical inclinations, if we can surrender all of these things, we can then find the truth. So we have to work on becoming content. We have to work on becoming at peace. We have to work on becoming without constant irritation of the fact that we don't have what it is that we want. We have to develop patience, inner patience, contentment, and gratitude. This is what makes us calm enough in order to receive the message of the truth. If we don't have patience, inner patience, contentment, and gratitude, we are so busy reacting to all of the things in the world that we can't be still long enough to begin to understand truth, that we can't be still long enough to be able to understand the difference between right and wrong and the difference between illusion and reality. We have to enter into a state of quietude in order to be able to do this. So it's important that in our daily exercises, we do something to make ourselves quiet. And if we can't do that, we have to try very hard to figure out how to do it. We have to be able to sit still without our mind floating in a million different places and taking us along with it. You see, if you sit still, your mind will continue to act out. However, we need to learn to release ourselves from our mind. Imagine gears that one pulls the other. If you pull the gears apart, the gear keeps going, but it no longer has effect on the other gear. So we need to pull ourselves apart from our mind, and the mind can keep going, but it no longer pulls and pushes us. We detach from it. And this is an exercise that we have to try and do. We have to do an exercise where we detach from the constant influence of our mind and we redirect our influence towards the qualities that are God. So as the mind tells us we need this and we need that, we need to tell ourselves what we need is compassion and mercy. Where the mind tells us we constantly have to get and get and get and get, we have to then override that and tell ourselves what we need to do is to be able to give and give and give and give. We need to change the paradigm of our existence. As the Christians say, we need to be reborn. And we do need to be reborn. And how do we need to be reborn? We need to be reborn in God's qualities. And we do this through our belief in our teacher and our surrender to our teacher. And through the surrender to the teacher, if he's a true teacher, there is a surrender to God. And in the surrender to God, we allow God to take over our life. So we give up our will for his will. And within his will are the answers to all of our dilemmas, which, by the way, you will never find in chasing the world. The answer to our dilemmas don't exist in the ocean of illusion. They only exist in truth. And to find truth, we have to give up the will that we have created to conquer this illusory world, the will that we have created to be able to grab and hold on to all of this illusory world. There is no solution to it. The only solution is death. But even death isn't a solution, because as long as you're tied to it, you will be brought back into it. There were two bullfrogs who were in opposition to each other, and they attacked. And one opened its mouth and tried to swallow the other bullfrog, and kept opening its mouth wider and wider and wider to swallow it. And the other bullfrog, in order not to be swallowed, kept making itself bigger and bigger and bigger. So you had this opposition one to the other until they both exploded. And if you're trying to conquer the world, that's what's going to happen. An explosion is going to occur, and you're going to be in the middle of that explosion. So instead of becoming bigger, we have to become smaller. Instead of desiring, we have to surrender. We have to surrender to the truth. We have to surrender to God. We have to surrender our sensory perception. We have to surrender our will. We have to surrender our mind. And when our mind is no longer influencing us, we will be influenced by the truth, because the mind creates all the veils that separate us from our heart, where our soul resides and where the truth resides. And if we can do that, then truth and reality will open up for us. Wisdom will bring reality into us. And as our intention becomes stronger and stronger to know that, our wisdom will rise commensurate with our intention. So as we intend to know the truth more and more, as we intend to surrender more and more, wisdom will come to us that will help us on this path and take us on this way. That's the way it is, because Allah intends for us to know the truth. Allah intends for us to become the archetype of the original creation of man. And what was the original creation of man? Man who could commune with God. So we need to fulfill that intention. And we need to pray to fulfill that intention. And we need to pray to release ourselves from all of the things in this world that bind us to it. So cut the cords to the world, cut the cords to illusion, and allow ourselves to enter reality. And we enter reality by giving up the world. We can't constantly crave the world and find reality. We have to make a choice. And this is our intention. And we travel on the path of our intention. We find things by way of our intention. So let's make our intention pure. Let's make our intention holy. Let's make our intention to find reality and find the truth within existence. And let us rely with our faith on the fact that in God's mercy, He is going to bring that intention into fruition. He is going to make that intention happy. So our faith has to become strong. Our intention has to become strong, and our wisdom will follow and bring us to reality. May that happen for each and every one of us. May we all know the truth, and may we each become the truth. Ameen, ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.